I trusted my best friend with my business. He stole it from me by forging documents. While he enjoyed life with my money, I stayed silent. But one day he opened the door of his mansion and saw that I was already there, with a group of lawyers and federal agents. The friendship between Justin and me went back 15 years, to our college days at UCLA. We weren't just friends, we were brothers in everything but blood. When I inherited some money from my grandfather, Justin was the one who convinced me to invest it in something bigger than myself. Together, we built Elite Fitness, a chain of high-end gyms that would revolutionize the fitness industry in Southern California. I brought the capital, and Justin brought his experience from managing his uncle's gym in San Diego. We split everything down the middle, 50-50. It seemed perfect. I handled the business strategy and expansion plans while Justin managed operations. We complemented each other perfectly, or so I thought. The first red flag appeared so subtly I almost missed it. Justin started missing our weekly strategy meetings, always with a perfectly reasonable excuse. His mother was sick. He had to meet potential investors. There was an emergency at one of our locations. I covered for him, taking on his responsibilities one by one. Soon, I was handling everything: finances, staff, client relations, even the day-to-day operations he was supposed to manage. Meanwhile, Justin's lifestyle changed. He traded his modest apartment for a penthouse in downtown LA. His old Honda disappeared, replaced by a gleaming BMW. When I asked about it, he laughed it off. "Just making some smart investments on the side, brother. You should do the same." I trusted him. That was my first mistake. The second red flag came in the form of restricted access. One day, I couldn't log into our financial management system. The error message claimed my credentials were invalid. I called our IT department, but they said the change had come from executive level, from Justin's office. "Just a security upgrade," Justin assured me over the phone. "I'll have it fixed by tomorrow." Tomorrow became next week, then next month. He always had an excuse, always sounded concerned and apologetic. I started making quiet inquiries. Our CFO, Sarah Chen, pulled me aside after a board meeting. "Something's not right," she whispered. "Justin's been moving money around, creating new corporate entities. He asked me to sign off on some unusual transactions, but when I asked questions, he had me transferred to our new branch in Phoenix." The final blow came on a sunny Tuesday morning. Our corporate lawyer, James Matthews, called me urgently to his office. His face was grave as he slid a document across his mahogany desk. It was a revised company charter, dated 3 months prior. According to this document, I had sold my entire stake in Elite Fitness to Justin for a nominal sum of $1. My signature was there at the bottom of the page. It looked perfect, except I had never signed it. "This was filed with the state last quarter," James said quietly. "Legally, you no longer own any part of Elite Fitness." I felt the floor drop out from under me. 15 years of friendship. Countless holidays spent at each other's homes. I'd been best man at his wedding. And he'd stolen everything from me with a forged signature. Most people would have exploded. They would have confronted Justin immediately, demanded answers, maybe even gotten physical. But rage is a luxury you can't afford when you're playing the long game. Instead, I smiled, thanked James for bringing this to my attention, and walked out of his office. That evening, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Diana Morrison, one of the best forensic accountants in Los Angeles. The second was to Michael Chong, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. The third was to Robert Blackwood, a lawyer who specialized in corporate fraud cases. "Don't confront him," Robert advised. "Let him think he's won. The more comfortable he gets, the more mistakes he'll make." So I watched and waited. Justin moved into a $2.3 million mansion in Beverly Hills. He bought a Porsche 911 GT3 in racing yellow, subtle as a punch to the face. At charity events and social gatherings, he spun a story about how I'd wanted to pursue other opportunities, and had sold him my share of the business. Diana discovered a web of shell companies, all leading back to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Michael's investigation revealed a pattern of systematic fraud going back at least 2 years. Justin hadn't just stolen my half of the business, he'd been embezzling funds, manipulating accounts, and evading taxes on a massive scale. I built my case methodically, piece by piece. The forged documents alone would have been enough to prove fraud, but I wanted more. I wanted total destruction. Every time I felt impatient, I remembered Justin at my grandfather's funeral, patting my back, telling me how he'd always be there for me. The endgame began with a series of anonymous tips to the IRS about irregularities in Elite Fitness's tax filings. Next, an internal audit revealed discrepancies that sent our investors into a panic. Justin's carefully constructed house of cards began to tremble. He didn't notice that his new assistant, carefully placed by Michael, was documenting every questionable transaction. He was too busy enjoying his stolen wealth to see that his empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Then came the day I'd been waiting for. It was a Sunday morning. Justin always slept late on Sundays. I stood on his doorstep at 9 a.m. sharp, flanked by Robert, 2 FBI agents, and 3 IRS investigators. The doorbell's chime echoed through the mansion. Justin opened the door in silk pajamas, his face shifting from annoyance to shock when he saw me. Behind him, I could see moving boxes. He'd been planning to run. "Hello, Justin," I said calmly. "I think it's time we discussed some irregularities in the business." He tried to slam the door, but federal agents don't appreciate that sort of thing. They pushed past him, warrant in hand. I followed them in, taking in the expensive art on the walls, the Italian marble floors, all bought with stolen money. "My money. This is ridiculous," Justin sputtered. "You can't do this. I own Elite Fitness now." "About that," I replied, watching as agents began seizing computers and documents. "Those signatures you forged. Not your best work. Neither was the money laundering. Or the tax evasion. Remember Sarah Chin? She kept copies of everything." The color drained from his face as understanding dawned. All his careful plans, all his manipulations, were unraveling in real time. I saw the moment he realized that while he'd been living large, I'd been orchestrating his downfall. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" he asked, his voice small. "We could have worked something out." I looked at my former best friend, the man I'd trusted with everything, and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just a hollow emptiness where 15 years of friendship used to be. "You were my brother, Justin," I said quietly. "And brothers don't steal from each other." They led him away in handcuffs, his perfect life collapsing around him. The mansion would be seized. The Porsche would be sold at auction. Elite Fitness would return to my control, though the victory felt Pyrrhic. A week later, I sat in my restored office, looking out over the Los Angeles skyline. The business was mine again, but the cost had been steep. Not in money, the forensic accountants had traced and recovered most of that, but in trust. How do you believe in friendship after something like this? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was from Justin's wife, Maria. "He wants to talk. Says he can explain everything." I stared at the message for a long time before putting the phone away unanswered. Some betrayals can't be explained. Some bridges, once burned, leave only ashes. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, who really won in the end? And was revenge worth the price of becoming someone who could orchestrate another person's destruction so perfectly? The business is thriving now, bigger than ever. I run it alone, trust no one completely, and sleep with one eye open. Success tastes different these days, less sweet, more bitter. But at least it's mine. And Justin? He's serving 8 to 10 years in federal prison, plenty of time to think about loyalty and consequences. I heard he's writing a book about business ethics. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so sad. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. What they don't tell you is that even after it's served, it stays with you, a persistent chill you can never quite shake off. Every time I pass Justin's old office, now converted into a conference room, I remember the friend he used to be, and the enemy he chose to become. Maybe that's the real revenge, not the satisfaction of winning, but the knowledge that he has to live with what he did, just as I have to live with what I did to him in return. We're both changed men now, shaped by betrayal and revenge, neither of us quite the people we used to be. Some nights, I dream about that moment at his door, about the look in his eyes when he realized everything was over. In the dreams, sometimes I'm the one in handcuffs, and he's the one watching with cold satisfaction. Maybe that's my subconscious telling me we're not so different after all. But then I wake up, go to the office, and build something new from the ashes of what we destroyed. That's the thing about betrayal, it teaches you that nothing is permanent, not friendship, not trust, not even revenge. All you can do is keep moving forward, carrying the lessons with you like battle scars. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the city lights blur into a golden haze, I raise a glass to the memory of who we used to be, before money and greed twisted everything. To the friendship that died, to the trust that burned, and to the hard truth that some victories feel more like defeats. But I never regret it. Not for a second. Because in the end, justice isn't about feeling good, it's about setting things right, even if the cost is your own peace of mind. And that's a price I'd pay again, every time. They say every story has two sides. I've often wondered about Justin's version, what rationale he built in his mind to justify betraying me. Did he convince himself I wasn't working hard enough? That he deserved more? Or was it simpler than that, just greed, pure and uncomplicated? The investigation revealed more than just financial fraud. There were emails, hundreds of them, showing how methodically he'd planned everything. He'd spent months building relationships with key employees, subtly undermining my authority while maintaining a facade of friendship. Some of our staff later admitted they believed his stories about my erratic behavior and concerning decisions. Even Maria, his wife, had been partly deceived. He told me you were struggling with gambling debts, she said during one of our rare conversations after his arrest. That you'd agreed to sell your share to pay them off. The look of shame on her face when she learned the truth was almost as painful as Justin's betrayal. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself, it was realizing how long it had been coming. Security footage from our offices, reviewed months after the fact, showed Justin staying late, meticulously going through company records, carefully building his plan while I trusted him blindly. Every friendly lunch, every casual conversation about my future plans, had been reconnaissance. There's something particularly cruel about premeditated betrayal. It's not just the act itself, it's the knowledge that someone could look you in the eye, day after day, planning your destruction while sharing your life. Justin had stood beside me at my father's funeral just 6 months before everything fell apart, holding my shoulder as I grieved, probably already knowing what he was going to do. The victory brought changes I hadn't anticipated. Our mutual friends divided into camps, some believing Justin's claims of innocence, others shocked by the depth of his deception. Holiday gatherings became awkward affairs of careful conversations and avoided topics. Some stopped inviting me altogether, finding it easier to pretend nothing had happened. Elite fitness survived, but it wasn't the same. I implemented new security measures, multiple layers of financial oversight, regular audits. Trust became a luxury I could no longer afford. Every new hire, every partnership, every contract now goes through extensive background checks. Some call me paranoid. I call it learning from experience. The story made the local business news, of course. Fitness empire fraud exposed ran the headlines. Competitors tried to capitalize on the scandal, but our client base remained largely loyal. Perhaps they appreciated the poetic justice of it all: the betrayer betrayed, the schemer out-schemed. Justin's sentencing hearing was on a rainy Tuesday. I attended, sitting at the back of the courtroom, watching as the man who had been my best friend stood before the judge in an ill-fitting suit, his usual confidence replaced by desperate pleas for leniency. His lawyer spoke about his philanthropic work, his contributions to the community, his role as a family man. Then the prosecutor stood up and methodically laid out every detail of his crimes. The forged documents. The embezzled funds. The tax fraud. The systematic deception. By the end, even Justin's supporters in the courtroom looked shaken. The judge's sentence was unequivocal: 8 to 10 years, no possibility of early parole. As they led him away, Justin turned and our eyes met across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the friend I'd known, or thought I'd known. Then it was gone, replaced by something harder, colder. A mirror of what I'd become, perhaps. The story should end there. Justice served, balance restored, lessons learned. But life isn't that neat, that conclusive. The echoes of betrayal linger, shaping every new relationship, every business decision, every moment of trust. Last month, I received a letter from Justin's prison counselor. Apparently, he's been making progress, showing genuine remorse, wanting to make amends. The counselor suggested a supervised meeting, a chance for closure. The letter sits in my desk drawer, unanswered. Some wounds are better left unopened, some bridges better left burned. Besides, I'm not sure which would be worse: finding out his remorse is genuine, or discovering it's just another manipulation. So I focus on building something new from the ashes of what we destroyed. Elite Fitness has expanded to 5 states now, each location a testament to what can be achieved even after betrayal. The company culture emphasizes transparency, integrity, and accountability, values born from the hard lessons of trust misplaced. Sometimes, late at night in my office, I look at old photos from the early days. 2 young men with big dreams and bigger smiles, standing in front of our first gym location. We looked invincible then, unaware that the greatest threat to our success would come from within. Those photos are a reminder that success and betrayal often walk hand in hand, that the same ambition that drives us forward can also corrupt us. They're also a reminder that survival sometimes means becoming someone harder, colder, more calculated than you ever thought you'd be. The business world loves redemption stories, tales of friendship restored and lessons learned. But some stories don't have neat endings. Some betrayals cut too deep for healing, some trusts, once broken, stay shattered. Yet here I am, still standing, still building, still moving forward. The company is stronger now, more secure, more successful than ever. But success tastes different these days, less like triumph, more like survival. And maybe that's the real lesson in all of this, that sometimes winning means losing something of yourself in the process, that justice and revenge are 2 sides of the same tarnished coin, and that the price of survival is becoming someone you never thought you'd be. But would I do it all again? In a heartbeat. Because some prices are worth paying, some lessons worth learning, even if they change you forever. After all, in business as in life, it's not about who you trust, it's about how well you survive when that trust is broken.